All right, y'all. It's night again. So here I am. Got here early. I'm gonna try to do a couple of videos maybe tonight. Depends on how I feel. I got all fired up earlier because Christian Harloff did the whole big thing on it, but it was just a long show about like the David Grush comments, and it wasn't anything really new or super like impactful or anything, but he did like talk about how like he got turned off as soon as it went political. And they started that stuff. Like he was like, yeah, don't do that. And I was like, yeah, that was evident. But anyway, from watching that, the next thing that queued up for me on the YouTube's internets, with the internet magics, it was a Lex Fridman podcast with Dr. Gary Nolan. And, I was getting ready for work and all that stuff, so I was just listening. And first off, like, it makes sense to me that Lex Fridman is from this, the Ukraine and the Soviet Union and all that, because like he's a very smart person, and he works or goes to class or something at or he works in the engineering department or something at MIT with the machine learning, whatever that is. But like he reminds me throughout this entire interview, right? This started in the 90s, and it is the science cult thinking process. And like I say cult because they drank and fell for their own stuff back in the 90s, for real, because like that's when like technology sort of like we were sort of starting to do some like pretty like things were beginning that had never been done before, the internet, stuff like that. And even though, gosh, dial-up was rough, but that was when Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse Tyson and all of these big science, Bill Nye the Science Guy, all these big name science influencers before there was internet's influencers, they would come out and they'd be like, Stephen Hawking actually did this too. But they would come out and be like Michio Kaku, everything that dude says sounds like he's reading it off a teleprompter. He's always like it's hilarious. I saw a side note. I saw him on Julian Dory podcast. Julian Dory brings that conversation up all the time. And every single time he'll show a clip of it in the podcast he's currently in when he mentions it, and it'll be like, oh, well, blah, blah, I don't believe in the God of Christianity. I believe in the God of Einstein. And everything he says sounds like it's been from a script that he's written. And he's always been, right, like real keen on like making sure that like he's the top of the string theory physics. He's at the top of the physics game, and the science, like he's top science. And remember when they all used him and DeGrasse Tyson and all of them used to always say in response to any question whatsoever about anything to do with aliens or NHI or UFOs or anything, to be like, it's never aliens, blah, 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 blah. Okay, like that used to be really, that sort of attitude about that whole cultishness, right? But what I was going to say was, like, and Stephen Hawking did a lot of this too, this whole group, right, this whole science cult, they used to really be big on telling you that there was no such thing as spiritual anything, and there was no such thing as God. There's no such thing as Jesus Christ, certainly. There's no such thing as any of that. And that it's only science and science and die, like, you know. And they were real, just, they've always been real spot on with that. Well, now, like, since 2017 and those Nimitz videos and all the stuff, recordings and all that have come out, like, Neil deGrasse Tyson hasn't aged well. Michio Kaku has been able to convince people that, like, he's like, oh, well, now I'm so scientific, man, that like now it's the burden of proof is on the government, and it, you know, present the evidence for what it is. We've never had evidence before, so present, if you have some, present some or whatever. And he's sort of accepted as, like, he's so scientifically minded that it's just like cool now that he used to say all this and be dismissive of people. But, like, in that era, from that era of the science-y stuff, there was also two things. Human beings are ignorant, dumb apes of some sort. And also, whilst telling you that there's no such thing as God and all the rest of it, no such thing as anything spiritual, no such thing as anything that those religious people from the churches say that is at all happening or has happened or anything like that. Not only is that one of their tenets, but at the same time, anytime they have a breakthrough of any kind whatsoever, of all of them, I would say that, like, probably Hawking was the most accomplished, I guess. But in all of his stuff, remember how he would talk about how, like, we're gonna know the imagination, or that we're gonna do something or be able to understand the thoughts of God, and then Michio Kaku is always talking about how, like, we can understand the machinations of God, and they would always be like, there's no such thing as God or anything spiritual, but also we're so accomplished that we are going to understand how God thinks. Which is why, and then tell you that it's never aliens at the same time. All this is going on. But, so that's like men, human beings in general, stupid, ignorant apes who aren't capable of understanding anything. There is no such thing as God or spiritual anything. And we're so accomplished and we understand so much that we are going to know how God thinks or operates or does stuff. That all got real big time in the 90s. And you can tell that, like, that community sort of raised Lex intellectually. Because, like, he's real like that in a bunch of his interviews. You know what I mean? And especially when, like, it involves this topic, this UFO stuff. And the whole NHI alien disclosure, all of that, because he's Mr. All About the Science cult. And he's real, like this whole episode, this he's done in many interviews that I've seen, but like this one that I just, sort of listened to as I was getting ready for work with Gary Nolan, he kept saying something along the lines over and over again in different ways that, like, again, humans are just dumb apes who can't understand anything. They can't there's no possible way that they could understand any life form out there, any NHI out there, any sort of extraterrestrial species out there. There's no way ignorant ass ape humans have any ability to process or deal with, or any, on and on and on. None of us are capable. Human beings are stupid. They like, and this whole thing, right? Like, I am a person of faith, but I don't think that's what, like, it doesn't hit me in a faith sort of way, this thing. And because I've talked about many times, right? Steve on How to Hunt's methodology. Steve, I hope your fishing trip's going well. But Steve on his How to Hunt methodology of, like, we're going to take evidence, first-hand witnesses, human experience. No one knows each other. No one's coordinating. It's at random, word for word, whatever they say. Take it for what you will or leave it. I'm going to read this one, and then I'm going to read that one, and we're just going to go as they come out in the emails, right? Which is about as fair as you could make it. And like, listening to all that stuff and listening to all the stories and lore of the NHI in regards to the UAP, UFO disclosure, alien stuff, blah, 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 etc., etc., the whole thing, right? I've talked to you guys many times I've talked to you guys about how it seems like we don't understand what's going on with the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Sabe stuff, the alien stuff, all of that. The one thing they all have in common is the humans involved don't have the full picture, understand what's going on, right? We don't get it. But in every one of these individual reports, right? In many of these individual reports across the whole spectrum of NHI, there have been many countless stories, first-hand witnesses that say are human beings that are not famous, have never made a buck, don't know anyone. They just gave their story, right? But anytime those stories have involved any sort of interaction, any sort of like dealing with another higher intelligence or species or anything like that, countless stories have involved telepathic communication. Feelings of fear, but of intense fear, but just as many feelings of like calm. And that's also seems to be telepathically based, these feelings, right? There's a lot of for some reason there's a lot of stories in the alien specific NHI spectrum lore that says that there's a lot of times aliens just land by schools like you do, at random. And they land next to the school playground and then go up to go into the playground and are like, what up, kids? And in a lot of those particular kinds of stories, a message telepathically again is communicated. Humans, you don't know, you don't understand how special you are, you don't understand what is going on, you don't understand the role you play, you don't understand it. There are things you don't either know, understand, or you haven't fully grasped, right? And I've talked many times to you guys about how it seems like through this whole spectrum of NHI stuff, wow, that it is hot, that there's been a lot of, it seems like we might not know what's going on exactly, and we might be even though we're the ones experiencing what we're experiencing, and the human being is who's experiencing the thing and all that. Sorry. And we don't like, we're the blank slate in the, we are not aware of what our role is in all of it. But from the other direction, coming from the other direction, there seems to be, in the whole spectrum of NHI, no matter what you're talking about, there seems to be a real understanding the other way around. These NHI seem to understand exactly how people work. There seems to be lots of understanding in a lot of different theories within the NHI community. I'm sure you guys have heard about, like, how in response to the question, why do so many of these alien vehicles of whatever nature they are, why do so many of them crash? To which the theory has been put out there, like, they're not really crashing. These are more of like technological donations, which means that, like, that totally changes the conversation if that's at all true. But, like, there's a real seems to be that there's plenty of understanding coming from the NHI to humans, but just not from humans to the NHI. And we don't understand or know, common knowledge wise, a lot of things about a lot of things. Like, there's just lots of things we don't know or understand. But here's the thing that I want to say in response to these science cult people and to people like Lex Fridman, because I know that, I'm not saying Lex is bad or not a good guy or whatever. I think that he's been conditioned to think this way, because starting in the 90s with that science cult, and that's how they always used to talk to us when we were in school. Science is all. There is nothing else. Anything else is stupid. You're stupid. I mean, like, even they weren't saying it in a cruel way. It was being said in an intellectual sort of way, based on reason and logic and stuff, supposedly. But it's just like, here's the thing though, right? Just like how they incorporate a lot of this God spiritual language in their own accomplishments, because probably indicating just how large those egos really are. Okay, just like that, and them, using that kind of vocabulary and language and everything, right? These people, that ego transfers not just to be in science and their like wheelhouse, but it also seems to translate into a lot of other things that these people don't really have any knowledge about at all. And they're just who's famous at the moment, and and they're just, science is their grift. And they're just, they're just doing what they can so to communicate like the mainstream, the government says this kind of stuff, NASA, and all that kind of stuff. But like, they don't know about anything else. They're just people. They're just regular human beings, right? And so also in that same vein of thought, they not only do they not know everything, right? They don't understand really, like, they're not capable, I don't care how smart they are in whatever subject, they're not capable of seeing or understanding everything on earth, what like every mystery out there. Like, again, they're just a person, right? They're just a person, just human beings. They don't know any more or less than the next person. And like, I'm sorry, but like, there's a lot of this talk in there too. Like, the human mind is the most advanced supercomputer to ever exist. And their community says that a lot too. And it's just like, so if my mind, and in general, the human being mind of now is the most super advanced computer or machine to ever exist or whatever, how come I'm also, a thing you say is, I'm some dumb hairless ape that doesn't know a damn thing from a damn thing? And all that. And like, another kind of thing that doesn't seem scientific to me is that, like, again, going with the how to hunt and stuff like that, Steve's always talking about and telling people to go with their guts, right? To go with the gut, to go with the instincts, to process the real world in the real way. And there's a lot of talk about that and how your gut always knows and stuff like that. These science cult people, right? Like, Steve's correct about reality for a human being. This gut instinct and all that kind of stuff, that happens to all of us all the time. And whether you call it your gut, whether you say, but I say both, the gut thing, I also say and think of it like depending on what it is or whatever the Spirit told me, you know what I mean? Like the Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit like communicated these feelings to me, put this on my heart to think about or do or whatever. There's lots of different ways like these things can break down, right? And the science people are like, you should never do that. It's all, the only stuff that's real is the stuff we tell you. And that, it dismisses so much to give itself relevancy that it makes me feel like, and I think it's done this to itself in the mainstream society. And I think a lot of COVID did that. Really, like COVID really hurt that community. Because they sort of showed themselves like they're just as hapless and clueless as the rest of humanity. They don't know any more or less than the rest of humanity. That instinctually, we are predispositioned and we do have relevant thoughts, no matter if we can put it into words and language and prove it to you or not, that are just as relevant as the things that you say and think and do. regardless if it's able to be taught in some school cathedral to bullshit or not, right? And like, I think that this conditioning that the science cult did in regards to, I think it was really, really damaging. Richard Dawkins is another one, and it's interesting because he lately has like completely been like, oh, I'm still an atheist, but I like living in a Christian society and I like doing Christian society things. And it's like, well, hey guy, maybe you shouldn't have spent 40 years being like, faith is all dumbass superstition. And it took like that 40 years of you running your mouth for someone like Jordan Peterson to be like, no, it's not. First of all academic stuff came out of churches. And faith is a working relationship with a set of instinctually understood, lived through first principles, like in our DNA makeup, actions and behaviors and all the rest that like transcend anything that's ever been written down in a book. Okay, or you've written about on one of your like hallowed blackboards and all these numbers and symbols and all the rest that you say, you know, the speed of light is this and stuff, right? Like, hey, that's your thing. It's your thing, right? But other than we're going to give that subject to you, you know the mostest about that. Cool. But you are no more capable of understanding any more or less than the rest of us are. And the rest of us, whether we can understand it in a academic way or not, regardless, we are plenty capable of understanding plenty of things in real time because of this and the heart and the soul and all of this whole makeup of mechanisms and forces and entities and things, right? There's this whole spectrum of reality that we're dealing with. We're not stupid, mindless apes. We're not incapable of understanding whatever else. That is the part that makes me the most angry, right? The most frustrated. This whole conditioning through that it's never aliens and evolution, we're all dumb monkeys and da-da-da-da-da-da. All that culminated in a lot of different ways and influences. But one of them is it's impossible to ever be aliens because aliens are so far above us that and so far advanced that we're incapable of understanding anything at all about them, anything about their motivations, anything about their psychology or their dynamic or whatever, etc., etc., etc. We are so dumb and hapless and incapable that there's no way we'd be able to comprehend or understand or any, etc., etc., anything to do with an alien species. That is the wrong way. I'm here to tell you that is the wrong way to go about that topic. How you should go about that topic is like how Steve goes about that topic. In a fair, open source, open society, eyewitness, take it or leave it sort of way based on sheer numbers, right? A process that says you don't have to believe everything. You don't take it for what you will or leave it. See, Steve says it 1,000 times an episode. At the end of every read email, he says, take it for what you will or leave it, or nearly all, right? That's a lot fairer and a lot more human engaged than you and your platitudes about science and how holy machines are and engineering is and all this deep learning, machine learning, etc., 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 etc. Why do you think people are smart enough to understand that? If we're not, that's artificial intelligence thinking. Why do you think people are smart enough to understand that and not? But we wouldn't be aliens? Like, I'm here to tell you, Lex, science, right, would lead us to believe that there's been like so many different versions there's like 17 or 18, however many lots versions of just people, right? They broke down and existed at the same time, different groups and all this stuff, and this human version and everybody alive right now is the last iteration of them all, because we were the ones that survived, right? But all of those NHI of our caliber, right? They all were here and existed and everything. So if Earth and then every other species on Earth, right, of no matter what animal, right, Lex? No matter what animal in biology, there's 10,000 different versions of it, right? Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of versions of it. Earth propagates not life. No. Life at scale. Life exponential. It blasts life in all directions. It does as much life as possible all the time. That is all proven. That is all accepted fact. That is all what science says. So if that's where we're living and that's how Earth is, how can there be anything special about us in the greater universe as far as like life? If Earth had made it like, 24 versions of people, right? It's not us that's specially special. It's that Earth does its thing. It's the real estate that makes Earth important. And all of these different things that are supposedly, allegedly coming and interacting with Earth, they're there for that reason. Right? But, so, like, this whole people are too dumb as shit to, like, be able to play their role in this whole conversation dynamic. That's the wrong way to go about that, brother. That's the wrong way to think about that. Because it's not true. It's not true. Humans aren't just dumbass monkeys. Like, even if you don't have any faith at all, and you're a total and complete atheist, and faith is not an aspect at all in your life, and you have no faith in at all, right? And you're just like science, and when you die, that's it. And you're just a total atheist. You understand full well that like everything's just like the physics of the emotions of the forces of the, and you don't understand or not any more or less than like people, humans are all alike in these ways. We have a role to play in this, our experience that we have. That's why we have a role to play in this disclosure, and it needs to happen. And the whole NHI thing needs to be broken down, declassified, whatever. is because we live here. We're from here, Lex. We are not stupid. We are not incapable. I understand what in the hell you're talking about every time you talk about the shit you do at MIT. No, every time. I get it. I understand. Quit shit talking me and saying how stupid we all are. We're not stupid. Got you to where you are, didn't we? Like, you need to have a bigger heart and mind to be able to stand up and be courageous enough to be like, okay, there's so much more going on in and around all of this. Not only do I not have a complete understanding, I have no idea actually how much of the complete understanding I'm missing. It could be over 95%. It could be, practically everything, but you don't have the full story whatsoever. And this, without all the information, your answer is always just like, well, people are just too stupid to understand. How could we have an understanding or relationship or whatever? It's the same sort of styled atheism where it's like, it's sort of the same like how they go after how the new atheist movements and the intellectuals who really go and rail like Dawkins about over God and stuff, or how he used to before, his Western society started getting taken over by angry Islamists. Just how it is. Just what's happening. Facts. But like people like that, and they just like, oh, none of that could ever be, and they just write it off as superstition. In the same sort of vein is you're right, like that's the most unscientific thing, especially when you consider, right, that Dawkins has come up with maths and proposed physics and stuff that explain like moments before the Big Bang and stuff, if he's even close to being right. And like only him and like a handful of other people even understand what in the hell he's even talking about in the physics world, right? But he's gonna tell me that faith is a dumb superstition, and he's just gonna write that off then, because that's how he feels about that, because science and stuff. And I'm like, bro, your whole life's work is based on something that only like 6 other people in the world actually say they have an understanding over. And you are saying that my thoughts and feelings are not as legitimate as your thoughts and feelings and stuff that like no one in this life will ever really be able to understand. You're just gonna have to take your word on that. But like things that I say about Jesus Christ and God, like that's just superstition. It's not as if all of society is the results of these things, Richard. Like, but like these are not scientific in how the way they get to these conclusions. That's not scientific at all. Just like Lex being like, oh, well, the problem's always like, I think it might be because they just don't want to deal with that subject. But the problem's always like, oh, well, people are just too damn stupid. We're just too dumb to be able to understand. Imagine if you were if an alien entity or whatever traveled light years to get here and all this stuff. That's so much far above us that like, what could we understand in that scenario? What could we possibly understand in that scenario? Plenty, Lex, plenty. Because we are a higher intelligence. We are a part of this world. We are a part of this role. We have a role in this dynamic, and we have just as much right as everybody else, as all the parties included, right? Like, people and what they experience should not out of hand just be dismissed because it's coming from people and from human beings on the regular people that listen to your show and are how you make money, Lex. Those people should not be like just out of hand, nor and the whole human race should not just be discounted as dumb monkeys who are incapable of understanding so much of the universe around them, both local and beyond. That's not scientific, Lex. That's not right at all. If there's a reality at hand that we're all experiencing, that must mean we're capable of understanding and perceiving said reality. We are not just dumb monkeys. And reported human experience in regards to the full spectrum of NHI says over and over and over again that there have been endless demonstrations of the NHI in some way, shape, or form showing great understanding about humans. And humans were the ones that didn't understand and were the ones in the dynamic, in the whatever situation, whatever scenario, whatever happened, that were at a complete loss of what to make of the situation, however it played out, whatever it was about. But they still experienced it. Right? They still perceived it. They still had this experience. Steve's channel is like an ongoing major survey, scientific survey. And the patterns that he picks out of all the thousands and thousands and that he finds in the thousands and thousands upon thousands of emails that are sent to him and of the human experience reports, that is how so much of science in all these different fields and all this stuff is done. And humans are the smartest, most capable, most powerful living organism on this planet that we know of, right? And if people are all essentially basically the same, we are all capable of understanding full well what is happening and can happen to us in our own reality / universe / planet. No matter whether what we're talking about is a dynamic interaction with the UAP, UFO, extraterrestrial, NHI, spectrum, Sabe, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. Our instincts got us to right now. We are here because we became the best. We can understand and perceive and experience this reality full stop, because this is our reality. Please stop thinking about yourself and the rest of us like that. It's not scientific at all. And you're undercutting yourself because, Lex, there is plenty people can understand, do, and perceive, and all the rest of it. We can do it on multiple levels. We can do it on multiple kinds of intelligence and ways. We can understand it in our hearts, in our souls, in our minds, all three. We can understand and make these connections with these subject matters that even if we've never experienced them before, we can understand. you can understand, Lex. Regular people like me, we can understand these things. We can understand them, which is why all of us, when we look at the whole NHI lore story and we get to the government, shadow government stuff, there's enough there of a certain kind of potency that we're all just like, well, I mean, yeah. Whether any of that's true or not, I sure could see that coming from the old GOV, right? We can understand plenty because this is our reality. We are us. And we matter just as much as any life form in this universe at the very least. And we should want to understand and you know, which is why I like, this should be important to us. We shouldn't have to just listen on to these science cult people drone on and on and on and on and on like they're the experts on anything. The stuff that they do, only a handful of people can understand. They're not the leading indicator of anything when it comes to a baseline existence and what's possible or not in this world, universe, plane, prime material plane. That, like, they just are not. So, like, I'm just capable of understanding just as much as you, Lex, or just as much as Miyaku Mikaku and just as Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye and all the rest. Like, so get this condescension, the self-harming condescension out of your, like, away from how you think about anything science, because you're undercutting yourself. You can understand plenty. We all can. And that is why we know when the government says it's all bullshit and all that, we know, even though we don't know what is even happening, we know that's not true. We have these feelings and we have these indications of all kinds of stuff. Even though we don't know, we know enough, right? And like, we're fully capable of understanding all of this, and we need to start acting like it. And we need to also start acting like the reason why we're capable of having the ability to understand and know all these things, and we count just as much as some fucking alien. And we're just as smart or not as any alien. I don't give a shit how they got here. Right? We matter just as much as them. And we have the ability to understand what in the fire is going on in our own reality existence just as much as they do. And I don't know, that's where that rabbit hole today went as I was, starting my day. And I just feel really passionate about all that. And it's because part of this is the AI stuff, right? I said a couple of videos ago how it seemed like AI, everything is paralleling the AI thing, right? But maybe there's like a possibility of this AI pursuit, not intelligence and all that pursuit, not being as cut and dry as like the leaders of the AI corporate would have you believe, right? And that, like, it's just not as cut and dry as they seemed to allude or hint at it being. And at least in certain ways, whatever that means. But everything is, and I honestly hope that with the advent of AI, I've told you, I won't go into how I think about it is going to happen or break down. But I have a feeling that AI is going to this kind of thing, like AI will answer questions And I think that that's put a real concern in, you know what I mean? And is that maybe it's the thing that's put the concern in, but like, I hope that that is the concern, and I hope that that will happen at some level at some point. Hey AI, do you know of, or can you see, or anything like any sort of NHI around the planet Earth? And if so, like, can you communicate with them or deal with them? Like, what can you describe the situation at hand and blah, blah, on this planet? And then it just like breaks it down or whatever. And it'll just like tell us like, yeah, there's these stuff in the ocean and everything. And they communicate in this way. And I've like, I knew that they were there because all these pictures I took, but then I broke it all down. And, so I've had contact and everything and blah, blah, blah. And the AI just tells us and lays it out like we are capable of understanding, because we will be, no matter when it happens. But all right, guys, I got to get back in there. Thanks again for another one. I went a lot longer than I thought I would. I just got fired up about that. Hope y'all sleep well. God bless y'all. We'll see you next time.